It's a new week and time for a new set, but this one's going to get interesting. Hi, I'm Brian from Airflow Music. Welcome back to another video. This is day 41 of our Go Practice Daily series. I hope you're all having a great day today. It is Monday, and my apologies for this getting to you a little later in the day than normal, but in common with things on the weekends, been busy, and so I'm actually recording this Monday morning and getting it edited. So we'll see what time it can get out to you. Sometime in the afternoon by New York time, and in the evening if you're in Europe. It is new set day. We're moving on to set 7 today, and this is going to change things up a little bit, particularly in exercise 2, although I have a couple of things for you to look at in exercise 1 as well. As always, these exercises are available as a free downloadable PDF from the Airflow Music online store. So you'll find the link for that in the description below this video, and I encourage you to go ahead and grab these exercises so you can follow and play along at home. Of course, everything will be on screen as normal as well as I play it. Okay, so let's get into this one. Exercise 1 doesn't really look any different. We're now moving into major thirds rather than bridging up the whole steps to get to major thirds. But other than that, it's going to be very familiar to those of you who've played along with me for these, well, now over 6 weeks. Okay, so there is one change I'd like you to make though. As you know from my standard spiel with these exercises, the Caruso style things like this, I'm playing them as long setting, which you may or may not be, but either way the rest of the rules remain the same. We go at 60 beats a minute, and I always encourage you to think about playing in time. So we have the metronome going, and at that point I'm tapping my foot and I'm subdividing the beat. Now usually, going at 60 beats a minute for these things, I'm subdividing by groups of 4. 4 semiquavers, 4 16th notes per beat, okay? As a little foreshadowing for exercise 2, when we're moving into quintuplets, groups of 5 this time, that's what I'd like you to subdivide by as we play exercise 1, okay? So it's going to add a little extra mental challenge to start to get to grips with that. Now, quintuplets tend to be less familiar, but there's no reason that they should be any more difficult. We're just not used to doing them. So all we're dealing with is fitting in 5 evenly spaced equal length notes into the beat rather than 4. Okay? Now we're going to standardize the tempo for both these exercises today so we can get to grips with this. So we're still going at 60 beats a minute, like I say. And that'll be true for exercise 2 as well. The rest of the stuff that we do with exercise 1 is the same as usual. It's just this subdivision I'd like you to think about changing. Okay? And so, yeah, we might just as well get into it because the rest of the stuff is the same. I'm breath starting the first note of every phrase. Because I'm doing this long setting, the mouthpiece remains on my lips throughout the entire exercise, all 26 phrases. And so all my breaths are nose breaths. And on the rest bar each time, I'm attempting to breathe in time. So I'm breathing out for 2 beats, in for 2 beats, through my nose, as I said. Dynamics-wise, we should still basically do something similar to what we did with set 6 later in the week, which is to try and play a little softer on the upper note compared to the lower note, or at least certainly not play any louder. That requires a sort of gentle decrescendo to go to that higher note and keep the volume the same in terms of what we're doing with our air. So just keep that in mind, but I'm giving you a lot to think about, so let's not worry about it too much. Let's get into playing exercise 1. There's exercise 1 from set 7 for the first time. How do we find that? For those of you who've been playing along, as it was for me, it should be fairly familiar and fairly straightforward. It's just that subdivision and thinking about that in a different way that may throw you off. But other than that, it's very similar to what we've been doing. The alternate fingerings are marked. We're doing major thirds now, so they happen much earlier in the pattern. And there's only 3 of them marked because the rest are standard fingerings that you would maintain the same valves for anyway. So I probably forgot to draw attention to that, but I'm sure you're with me on that anyway. Okay? How did you find this? Did the subdivision throw you off? How are we finding the range of this? You know, we're doing major thirds now, so the notes are getting a little higher. Is that still seeming comfortable enough? Love to hear about that. Anyway, let's move on to exercise 2, because this is where life's going to really get interesting. So now we're dealing with 16th notes or semiquaver quintuplets, groups of 5 in every beat. And so similar to when we were playing triplets a few sets ago, now the straight interval exercises like this, sometimes we land on the beat on the start note, or sometimes we land on the beat on the upper note. It kind of alternates. So as you'll see, I've marked these with accents. Now, the other thing we have to note here, because we're getting into quintuplets now, and it gets a little jumbled in the lines on the page for notating it, I've switched this from being in 4/4 to 2/4 time. Nothing has effectively changed. We're still playing the same number of beats. We're just splitting more notes into them, but we're still playing the same number of beats as we were before. It just makes it a little easier to notate it this way, rather than the page getting super full and jumbled. So kind of hang with it, and also having the click going in 2 rather than 4 places accents in more useful places for us, so we can try and stay on time a little bit. Okay, So I know this may look a little overwhelming on the page, but please try not to worry about it. We're going to go at 60 beats a minute, and this is going to be true for me too, it's going to be a little bit interesting to get used to fitting in those 5 notes per beat. So we're going to go at 60 beats a minute still and keep it fairly slow. But what I'd like to draw your attention to is that if we're doing quintuplets at 60, that's the same as doing straight 16th notes at 75. And we've already been doing those at 80 beats a minute, so this shouldn't be a problem in terms of playing things quickly enough. It's just processing in 5s rather than in 4s that is going to be the challenge here, okay? So all we're doing with these groups of 5, we're trying to keep 5 equal notes and place the accents on the beat. And that way we should be able to process it and deal with it, and it'll take a little getting used to for me as well, I'm sure. Okay? So rather than me waffling about this too much more, basically what we're doing here remains the same. Like I say, it's in 2 rather than 4 for notational reasons, but it's the same number of beats. So we have 4 beats worth 2 bars in 2 or 1 bar in 4 of slurred quintuplets, 4 beats worth of tongued, and then 2 beats slurred, 2 beats tongued before the 4 beat hold note. Okay? And then we've got 8 beats rest, as we did before. It rounds out to be the same length of exercise. We're going a little slowly here, so make sure to take a nice deep breath, engage your breath support, and just play a little soft so we can make it all the way through these, because they're potentially a little long. And remember that, you know, with all this tonguing, we don't need to blow every time we're tonguing a note. We're just moving the tongue in and out of the airstream. So, you know, these are not dreadfully long things to play. I think we should be able to cope with it. Let's try it out and see how we get on. Here's exercise 2. Let's start that one over. Tied my fingers in knots. Low G. 2, 2. Exercise 2 is a little interesting, right? I mean, I struggle with some things in that as well, and it's the main challenge for me is staying even and just hitting the beats. This is something, dealing with subdivision chain, things like this, is something I like to deal with when I'm practicing, but it isn't something I devote as much time to as I probably should. I have done at different times during my life, but right now it's not something I've really been focusing on. So this is going to be good practice for me as well. So we're starting out slow with this, and so, I was uneven in places. When I got down towards the end, I had the low G. I just fell over my fingers. Because as before, that tends to be a less familiar transition from that 1 and 3 to 2 fingering, and it can tie you in knots. Again, it's a good reason to practice it. Okay? So I had to restart that one, but other than that, everything went fairly smoothly. It's just the evenness of these things that I'm working on. Sometimes in the slurs with the alternate fingerings, and sometimes just even playing them with the valves. We're dealing with some stuff now. But how did you find this? I hope you're, appreciating the challenge of this and meeting me here in the spirit in which it's intended. This is some different stuff that we don't always deal with, but I think if we get it together, it's going to be really beneficial for all of us. But as usual, I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, so please do leave me a comment and let me know how you find it. Is playing in groups of 5 something you've done a lot before? Like I say, it tends to fall to the wayside a little bit and not be concentrated on as much as I think it probably should be. Okay? Anyway, this one is going to be in danger with the exercise 2 being a little longer and with me talking a lot. This video is in danger of getting a little long, so I'm going to leave it here for today. Of course, as always, as I said before, if you need the PDF of this, go to the Airflow Music online store via the link in the description below, and you'll be able to download it. And other than that, if you're enjoying these exercises and you've enjoyed the challenge of this video, then please do hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll be back with another spin through this. We'll see how we get on when we deal with it tomorrow. Until then, you know what to do. Go practice.